Hey guys, so today I want to talk about grit from Dr. Duckworth's book that grit is a huge indicator of future success. Gritty kids do better in life. People who exhibit higher levels of grit stick to their projects, they keep going, and they just end up with more success in their goals. Things like grit. Psychologists like to give very specific names to things we measure, but there's a lot of traits that are actually really similar, but are measured according to a different name. So with grit, we can also talk about perseverance and we can talk about resilience. Those are very similar traits, and we could say that the science is very similar on all those traits. And so right now I know that a lot of people are talking about resilience, and this is something that we're all trying to get better at given the circumstances of the year 2020. I know with COVID, with quarantine, I'm on the West Coast, so we've had fires. It's just all the things just keep coming this year, and we could all do with a little bit extra resilience. So I'm not sure if this happens to you all, but I feel like when there's a piece of psychological science or a new psychology book out that is popularized by the public, a lot of times they say something like, you know, X trait makes you live longer, or X trait makes you better at achieving your goals. And grit was similar. It was gritty people are better at getting success. They're getting better at getting their goals. And it kind of leaves you feeling like, well, how do I get gritty? Like, this is really great for the gritty people. Like, but how do I get this trait? How do I get from being not gritty to being gritty? I feel like that's the real help that psychological science could give people, and not just, you know, telling us that these magical traits help us in life. It's like, well, duh. The reason for this is because causality is actually really difficult to prove. But I want to talk about kind of how we could build up grit, or at least become more gritty, according to science. So the question here is really, how do we stick to something? How do we follow it through until we achieve the goal we wanted to achieve? And this is hard. And I kind of understand why the Grit book doesn't really cover this. It's a hard thing to understand, and I think it's hard to achieve. But there is a way to achieve this, and there's an actual process in which we could do every day to get more gritty, to become more resilient, and stick to our goals more. There is science that shows us that people who try more to achieve their goals actually get better at achieving their goals. So the more we try, the better we actually get at solving problems, achieving goals. So if you're in that spot right now, I want to encourage you to stick to it. You do get better, even though you feel like every time you fail, it's like a proof that you're failing. It's not. You're getting better, you're learning, and you're gonna eventually achieve it as long as you stick to it. So this is where grit comes in. The Angela Duckworth showed that people who stick to a certain discipline, like they don't switch their goals or their jobs or their interests too much, they actually gain more achievement, right? So the thing here is that you have to actually believe that you're going to have success. That's the trick. And so imagine like this: if somebody's running a race and one sprinter thinks that they're gonna win the race, one sprinter thinks that they're gonna fail the race. And we have lots of science on sports psychology that show that visualization is really important. And so we know that the sprinter who is envisioning themselves winning the race will more likely have the advantage. And the race might be slightly easier for them, and they are more likely to win with that visualization if they are matched evenly in their running capabilities. So what I want to talk about is, what thoughts are you thinking in regard to your actual goal and in the process of achieving that goal? So we need to kind of slow down with this, because a lot of thoughts feel super automatic, right? We don't even really notice them. We feel like, oh, I'm all of a sudden feeling like this, but I don't really know why. it came out of nowhere. It must have not been me. It must be like, the environment, it must be true. But I would encourage you to slow things down and really watch your thoughts. The thing about motivation is that it doesn't come magically. Sometimes it does. Once in a while, it actually does come magically. So excuse me on that. But the thing is that a lot of times we don't feel motivated. I see this a lot on different threads, entrepreneur threads, Reddit, things like that. Like, how do I keep motivated? How do I stay motivated, etc. And the thing is that you need to actually think thoughts that result in feeling motivated. So if you're sitting and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I am such a failure, I am never going to achieve my goal, then most likely you will not achieve that goal because you will be put into a state of demotivation. You won't feel motivated after thinking those thoughts, and you will actually become less resilient because beating up on yourself mentally like that makes us feel down. It makes us less resilient. Having positive emotion actually makes us more resilient. Caveat: I am not promoting the toxic optimism here. Toxic positivity is what it's called. So we do know that people who actually think about the possible hurdles that they're gonna have in achieving their goal actually do better in the long run because they're not shocked and demotivated when they actually encounter said hurdle. So it's important to be realistic in the process and in the planning of your goal, but to be careful with your thoughts when you're actually thinking about your goal, when you're thinking about yourself. There you have the opportunity for more positivity. You have the opportunity to speak to yourself in a more compassionate way. And I know some of you might think compassion is soft, but people who think compassionate thoughts actually are more resilient. They can go longer. They can have less burnout. So the people that are beating themselves up in their head, they're crashing and burning, while the people who are more compassionate are still running, right? So next time you kind of feel like maybe self-compassion is indulgent, consider the fact that it's kind of indulgent to not be self-compassionate, to have to burn out, Some of you might be thinking like positive thoughts are not realistic for me. There is no way I'm gonna believe them. I'm coming from down here and you're wanting me to go up here. That's just not gonna happen. And I get that. Think of it this way, you're running a really hard race. It's the last leg, everything hurts. And I'm here asking you to act like it's the best thing on earth, like you're having a great time, to ignore all the pain. I completely understand that that's not realistic. And so in those scenarios, when you just feel positivity, feeling really believing in yourselves, trying to generate thoughts that result in motivation, that result in self-belief, if that's not realistic, then I encourage everyone to maybe think neutral thoughts. Maybe don't think anything at all. At least get rid of that kind of beating yourself up. A lot of people kind of hang on to beating themselves up because they think that if they stop beating themselves up, they won't be motivated, they won't move, they won't do anything. But what we know is that that actually isn't the case. You're beating yourself up is holding you back. It's not helping you. So if next time you kind of see those thoughts in your head, you start thinking oh, I'm just such a failure, this is never gonna go right. Slow down, stop, recognize the thought. It is not the truth. And maybe just think of something else if you can't think of a positive reframe. And just distract yourself or distract your mind. And maybe you can get up to that positive reframe once you kind of start working on diminishing those negative thoughts. And by positive reframe, I mean you can talk back to these negative thoughts because they're not the truth. They're just your mind generating thoughts. So if you talk back to a negative thought, it might sound something like, well, actually, I've achieved quite a bit until this point. I've been in hard situations before and I've gotten through them. I'm super motivated actually. I actually really love the space I'm working in. I'm going to, help a lot of people doing X. There's all kinds of different positive reframes you can do, but what I would encourage you to focus on is the beliefs in your mind that are occurring on a daily basis and really start questioning them if they're not serving you. All right, I will see you guys next time. Comment below if you have any questions.